Welcome back, Nostalgia Hunters. Welcome back to the podcast where we talk about what is cool and what's just nostalgia. Today's episode is about movie sequels. I mean, we said sequels and everyone picked movies because I guess that's the most natural thing.
I guess we could have done game sequels.
We could
Maybe
have.
one day.
Well, when we picked the topic sequels, I was meaning movie sequels.
When we do the sequel to the sequels episode,
Yes.
we'll do video game sequels.
That's the kind of meta discussion we bring here. But so our topic here is about movie sequels. Did the second movie make it better? Was it a cash grab? Did the director learn a thing or two? Let's find out. I'm going to go first. Mine is the most famous and infamous Indiana Jones.
Preface, though, you said the second movie. It's not necessarily the second movie. It is just a sequel.
A
Doesn't have to be
sequel.
part two.
It doesn't have to be part two. It is a sequel. Because,
I think all of us chose part twos.
yeah.
Actually, we did, didn't we? It doesn't
Yeah,
I could
get
have done.
outta here.
I could have done 3, but there's a reason why I didn't.
Well,
we'll see what your option 3 was.
your movie is episode 5. Whose movie is episode 5?
Oh,
Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, when we-
but that's,
it's not number 2.
retroactive.
It's not number
That's
2.
yeah.
there were other episodes.
Oh, yeah.
I thought
I'm-
it just
I'm with
stopped
you.
there. Yeah.
So, mine is Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And I thought the reason you were bringing up there just the second movie or what is a sequel is because this movie is actually set before the first movie. So it's not that before the Raiders and anything else, it's a prequel that's set in 1935. And quick setup for me of like, what is the story? The movie opens with a dance number. It's a song. She performs.
I forgot about
And
that.
you're like,
And it's fantastic.
this is actually going on. Like, you're like, wait, this isn't a 10-second bit. It's going on. Like,
This
an
is a
actual
thing.
song is being
and
performed.
on, and on, yeah.
And they're like the dancers, they're doing splits and reverse video techniques to like make them stand back up from a full split and like weird things going on. And you were just like, oh, okay, so they all went all in. Which, as I watched it, and as you watch Dr. Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford walk in a white suit with like a red thing in there, you're like, oh, this is a homage to a James Bond movie because it looks exactly like a James Bond movie opening with the song on titles, and Bond walks in all cool.
That white suit is pretty badass.
Yeah.
I would say you need to take the word ass out of there, and then, yep, that's his white suit. But go ahead. Keep going.
Pretty bad.
Come on, you have no style, sir. No style.
So
You say my hoodie's not styling? Sorry, Andy, go ahead.
We've all seen this, so I'll run through the story quick. They're in China. Deal goes south, as always does with Dr. Jones. And so the lead actress is the one who performs the dance number and the singing number. And she gets roped in with Indiana. They both escape with Short Round, a little kid. I think they kind of establish he knows the kid, not just a random cab
They
robbed
have.
into.
They have history.
They have history.
Okie dokie, Dr. Jones.
Okie dokie, Dr. Jones. Oh my God, the kid's amazing. They get in the car, they run away from the bad guys. Chase scene ensues with like pull cart rickshaws and whatnot in Chinatown, in China. So I don't know if you can call it Chinatown if it's in China. It's just town.
It's just down.
You just go.
Well, I think they started out in Shanghai.
It's in Shanghai.
Yeah.
And they get on a plane, and the bad guys show up late, but the bad guy smirks because they get on a bad guy's plane, because it literally says Laos, whatever industry transport or something. So he's
It's a great
smirking.
reveal.
He's like, ha ha ha, you're still in my trap, Jones. So they're in the air. They're all tired, so they're all sleeping. Ridley Scott, the name of the lead actress is Kate Blanchett or whatever her name is. Full name, I forgot. But she's just screaming and hyperventilating, and it's not damsel in distress. Forget distress. It's like psychotic breakdown screaming, kind of like extremely caricatured damsel in distress the whole time. So they all fall asleep on the flight. the two pilots walk past them with, one of the pilots had to do an evil laugh. They're like, ha 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 ha. And they abandon them in the Himalayas and they jump off with parachutes and they wake up and there's like, nobody's flying this. They dump all the fuel, so they have no escape. Indiana Jones, this is the most hilarious part. They decide they're going to jump off the plane using an inflatable raft. And they literally pull the raft cord, short round. Willie Scott, Indiana Jones all hold on to that, fall down. I'll give them the practical effects of a limp raft falling down and then inflating middle of the fall and then falls on a snowy, I don't know how much cushion they thought the snow would provide, and then they fall on the snow and then start.
You're at terminal
That is like an
velocity and
insane-
hitting. Somebody's probably done the math on that.
And a nice sheet of plastic is what's protecting you
Yeah.
between.
And air.
And then how thick how thick the snow
no,
is
not
and
air,
all
because-
that because he's
The tube around it
Yeah, exactly.
has air in it.
Uh,
The center is just a
The
sheet of
center is
plastic,
just a
and they're
sheet of
sitting in it.
plastic.
True.
They fucking crashed on that. And that's not. Do you know what? How the typical thing is? You're like, okay, at least now we're fine. And then they go off like a ledge, and then they fall some more. They're in water rapids, and then they slowly come to a stop, to a land. And there's this old guy there who they look at him and get scared. It's just a regular village dude. He's not even that scary. I don't know why they had to be like scared of him, but. And they're like, oh, you're in India. You're so and so far away from New Delhi. Obviously, the village is in trouble. Someone's stolen these stones. Indiana Jones is not interested until he learns that there's some mythical stones here, and he's like, "Why are you going after it? Fame and glory. I'm gonna go chase these things." Goes there. Palace seems fine. A lot of weird things happen, which I'll address later. Finds out there's a cult using these stones, controlling people. Indiana Jones gets converted into that. Short round comes and burns him a little, and he wakes up from it, saves everyone, and escape with the stones from the palace that's held by the cult. That's the story.
and the stones help the village, right?
Yeah,
Like
and
it's-
so by the time he comes back with the stones to the village is already kind of like green and everything's nice. It used to be this famine, dry country, and now it's lush and green, and everyone's got six-pack abs again. They're like fat, and they're just like the stone is retrieved everything.
They got protein back in their diet.
I need some magical
The-
stones.
The stone took the protein away. That's the gist of the story. Now, addressing the curious parts about this. Do you know that PG-13 did not exist, but was created for this movie?
Yep.
Oh,
Because it's not as bad as R, but it's not as nice as PG. And they're like,
Well, if I remember right,
Weird.
this might be the first one that had it, but they actually started creating it because movies like Ghostbusters and stuff are rated PG.
and they were a
And
little too
there's like
scary.
a alluding to blowjobs in
yeah.
Ghostbusters.
So that's very interesting that it wasn't R, and they were like, we gotta use this for this. And then it's still a lot of parents complain that this thing was very dark.
What was the scene that you would consider dark?
How about like an hour's stretch in the middle of the movie? But the darkness, I think there's more backstory to it. Spielberg was going through a divorce. George Lucas was going through a divorce. In fact, if you see the movie behind the scenes, you can see Spielberg is kind of like flirting heavily with the actress,
Oh yeah.
whom he ends up marrying, and they're still married.
Is
So
it Kate Capshaw? That's
yeah,
what-
Kate Capshaw.
Is that
Yeah,
it? Okay.
That's her, who plays Willie Scott. So some think that she was written in such a caricature mode because no other Indiana Jones movie has such a damsel in distress. They're
No.
like very purposeful.
This is the
women.
damsel that he should have just like been like, I'm tired of this, and just left her.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know why he's trying to tackle her along. And she's just yelling, Indy, Indy, at like everything, complaining. So, whatever that is. George Lucas wanted to make it, I know we're going to talk about this later, make it darker than Empire Strikes Back. He was like, I want it dark. But years later, if you talk to them, if you see their interviews, Spielberg wasn't into it. He didn't storyboard this movie. The timeline was scrunched and they were doing it really fast. He was just like on the fly in the place doing something, so he wasn't really into this. He said later on you'll find him like it's too dark, it's too subterranean. There is no vast thing going on. It's just that he stumbled into a story, he does something, and he gets out. Um, Obviously, there's a cultural sensitivity kind of issue. And me being Indian, I was like the first in the village when he goes to, I could not make out what they were talking. Like I can, it's like if you're from Europe and if someone speaks Dutch or German or Spanish, you can kind of make out what language it is because you're from the area. So I can usually make out what it is, and I was like, why can't I make anything what they're saying? And in the second half, when the bad guy comes and he goes to the palace, I could understand it was Hindi and I could understand everything they said. That's because they gave the script to India to shoot in India, and India said, this is fucking racist, you can't shoot this here. And they went to Sri Lanka and made the movie in Sri Lanka.
Oh my god.
In any other Indiana Jones movie, when they're in Venice, they're in Venice. When they're in Rome, Egypt, even in like, what's that? When they're in Petra in Jordan, in that ancient temple where the knights guarding the, right?
The Last Crusade.
The Last Crusade, the knights guarding that thing, it's still a real place. In this movie, there's no real Indian, any historical thing there. That's because India was like, nope, you can't make this movie here. They had people eating monkey brains. They had like snakes inside snakes, which is just like people were just like, what? That's not what we eat. And as much as I searched, I could never find George Lucas or Spielberg correcting it or explaining it, or they were like, we were trying to make a play on what was already they thought Indian people ate. Like there's fans explaining it, but they never came out and said any of that in.
So nobody in India ever ate monkey brains as a delicacy at any point?
No, unfortunately not.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately for the legitimizing of this film, that never happened.
Okay.
Yeah. At the end, I'll say what's great and what's not great to very quick. Stunts, choreography, amazing. Music, John Williams, everyone's themes, everything mixed in. Sound design is amazing. Some of the real darkness of it is like pretty good. What doesn't work is the bad guy is also pretty cool. The Kali Ma guy, he's a pretty well-known Indian actor. What doesn't work is there is no grand story. There isn't like I'm chasing here and then here, and there's like a lot of Indian history woven into it. Like none of that. He stumbled
Someone took
in.
my rocks. Okay, here they are.
Yeah.
Done.
It's just that. Thuggy cult was also considered like a made-up thing that the British has made up. So it's not even real. What they brought in and made it real. The Britishers are the nice guys in that story. And I think that's about what's really good about it. So
what's your
that's
vote?
my
What's
take.
your vote? Because
My
I
vote?
feel like you might
Yeah,
go either
yeah,
way.
you could go.
This was what it was for me, and then I had to really compare it to other movies and think bigly, and I vote nostalgia. And not
Ooh.
I voted nostalgia.
All right.
Even if I
fair.
put aside the caricature of Indian portrayal, it's not as grand as an adventure, and what I loved is the steep in history thing about Raiders and of the Lost Ark is like, oh, there's so much history hidden here, or they went to the pyramids and they shined this, and there's a long history for the story, right? This one didn't have anything. It's like patchy, whatever they put in story, and that was also very incorrect what they put in. So I thought it was like, that's kind of lazy, and they were like expecting no one's going to investigate into this.
Was it the palace scenes and stuff like that entirely just not accurate at all? Like, I mean, granted, the food and stuff like that seemed like that was all amped up.
I think they're not accurate is the lore of the movie of like Shiva and the Kali is this, and they're both fighting or something. Kali's supposed to be his wife. It's
Okay.
not like that. There's no such thing as Shankara stones or things like that. There isn't a real tie-in. They could have tied into like Mahabharata or Ramayana, like old stories, kind of like really legacy stuff.
Okay.
That could have been very cool and very believable, but I feel like they just were like, let's just make an adventure in India, and he'll do it.
And you
But
can't
we'll
actually
film
go
it
to
in Sri
India.
Lanka.
Yeah.
Right? How does he show up? He jumps out of a plane on a raft, and then he just gets there. It's fine.
I mean, he
This-
could
you
have
know.
jumped out, like fell out with a in a refrigerator.
But that had more purpose. That had more purpose.
I don't know, man. That's way worse. At least, like with the raft, you could do this, and like you'll slow your momentum from terminal velocity, and you hit snow. There's a chance that refrigerator.
I mean, now we're trying to pick between two stupid ideas.
Yeah, they're both really
Which
stupid.
one's the better stupid idea?
It's
How
like
about we
Kingdom of the
just move
Crystal
on to the
Skull
other-
refrigerator
All right.
one to hold my beer.
That's my story about it. There's
And
so
he's
much I
sticking
could
to it.
dive into it, but I voted as nostalgia.
Okay.
All right.
And I hope the heart pulling scene traumatized you as a kid as it did to me.
We will talk about that.
All right.
All right. So one of the greatest movies of the 80s, in my opinion, is Robocop. It was pretty much a master class all the way around, and it's actually even getting more of its due these days for just like having some like a classic story. The villains are all memorable, some great scenes. He goes through a bunch of stuff. Like it's not just some like, giant guy, metal guy shooting bad guys. It's a guy who's trying to figure out if he's still human. Like what is it to be human? And that's always going to be a classic in every kind of story. So RoboCop, absolutely amazing. One of the best movies. It was also like satire was top tier because Paul Verhoeven directed it, and he's great with satire. So go Starship Troopers.
Yes!
I'm big fan.
Yes!
So
Love that movie.
That movie's amazing.
I know it's garbage,
And
but I love it.
Dude, it's
It's
amazing.
like- it's
gar-
like eating
It is
candy.
amazing garbage. Give it to me every
It's not
time. It's
garbage.
like
It's
it's like cotton
greatest-
candy, man.
Yes.
It's like cotton
It's
candy.
a
It
meta
never
art
ends.
piece is what it is.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So anyway, they made a lot of money with RoboCop. It had a small budget. I think it was only like 14 million, and then it made like 50 some million. And this is back in the 80s, so that was a decent amount of money for a rated R movie. It was violent, and so it did real good. So naturally, Orion Pictures wanted to go like, hey, I want to make more money because we need more money. And so they wanted to get out another movie as fast as possible, and they even like tied some incentives to getting the script done like before, I think it was 1989 or something like that. And they wanted the movie out like in 89 or something like that. Anyway, that didn't end up happening. The movie came out in 90. And RoboCop 2 is one of the movies that has like some of the most like iconic looks and scenes. Like when you think about RoboCop, you'll actually think about, if you've seen this movie, you'll probably think about this movie. However, they decided to go a little different with it, and it's almost like it's a cartoon, like Wile E. Coyote in some cases. And so anyway, the setup here is this is like about a year after RoboCop, and RoboCop, like Detroit's just going to shit, even worse than it was before. OCP has stopped paying the cops because apparently somehow the city, the mayor signed some sort of deal with OCP, and OCP is this big corporation that kind of controls and owns everything.
Yeah.
They essentially are the real government.
They bought the city.
They bought
They bought
literally
Detroit.
bought the. Actually, they put them into a situation where they would the city ended up defaulting for $37 million. By the way, that's
not
for
cheap.
only $37 million. Even
Detroit default on their loans?
Yes.
That could never happen.
and then the OCP is like, you have to pay that whole back in its entirety, or we're just taking the whole city, and they're going to make their own like mega city, or I think it's called Delta City.
Yeah.
And they want to make this huge, megapolis city,
They're gonna-
like Delta City, with high rises, and everybody has their own safe little,
Which I think
apartment.
is a big chunk of RoboCop 3, if I recall.
What's that?
Which I think is a big chunk of RoboCop 3, if I recall.
I try not to think about that movie.
You're
As
not
much as this
wrong.
one?
Yeah, no,
It's
no, no.
not
Hold on.
Flies in that one.
Yeah,
It's
oh my
cash
god,
grab
I'm gonna
squared.
fly my
Wait,
phone
yeah.
at you. So anyway, the city of Detroit ends up defaulting on their loan, and so they can't pay the police force. So they're all on strike because they're like, we're not getting. They got cancel their pensions. They can't do anything. And this whole time, there's this new drug going around called Nuke, and it even has a cult around it with this guy Kane that's kind of like the culty leader. And I don't know the actor's name, but he does a pretty good job of looking culty. But anyway,
I thought you were gonna say he does a good job at looking high on Nuke. But,
yeah,
you know.
well, he does that too. There's this like blue, like he's like I can't even remember how he says there's something in the and like telling like the chemist to like adjust the formula pretty much. So he did that pretty good. But anyway, RoboCop's still on the job, and he ends up running into like he's trying to track down the nuke stuff, and he runs into like the cult. He kind of like has a big old shootout with them, and he sees like there's also this girl and this kid who I think they're brother and sister, and she's tied to Kane, and he's like almost like his protege, I guess, but he's like a kid, which is actually a real big talking point for some of the critics. They hated that because they had a kid that was very evil, and this kid was evil, like straight up evil. So anyway, he ends up trying to track them down, and he gets pulled apart. And OCP has this whole other program where they're trying to make a Robocop 2, which is the title of the movie, but they're literally calling him Robocop 2. But they can't find a person who won't kill themselves because they keep using like military people or policemen. And their whole rationale behind that is like, oh, well, they wanted to have the life that they had. They had like, you know, the spirit to live on, and then they get in this metal body and they don't want to, so they kill themselves. And they have like really kind of it's pretty funny. It's very dark. This is almost like a dark comedy.
It goes through a cycle of robots.
It goes through a couple different robots and how they authors like shoot the one scientist, shoot the other scientist, shoot himself. Another guy just like pulls his head off, and it's just like a skeleton going.
He pulls his own
He
head
pulls
off.
his own head off.
No, I think he pulls the helmet off, and it's just this rotting
It's a skeleton
inside with like a tiny amounts of like face muscle.
Oh.
Yeah. So they're trying to do that. So they have this lady who is, I guess that they're, see, this is one of my problems with the story. Everybody's very one note, and they have like this thing, and they don't explain why they do it. But she thinks that somebody who is more like a criminal or something like that would love the ultimate power of being in a metal body or whatnot. So she thinks that she needs to do that, and so she convinces the head OCP guy by sleeping with him that they should go ahead and go down that road, and she gets to pick the person. Well, we've already talked about Kane, and Kane goes up against Robocop. They put him back together. Oh, they found him. They put him together. And it was a brutal scene, like just tearing him apart pretty much. And then they dump him in front of the cops, and OCP doesn't want to fix him or plays like they're not going to fix him. Well, they end up fixing him, and they rewrite all of his directives because the first movie had like three primary directives, but then he had a fourth one of like you can't go after anybody, a ranking official in OCP, and he got rid of that. Well, now he has like 400 directives, so he's like going in and like he shoots at a guy that's just smoking a cigarette, while another guy who has a band of like little leaguers robbing a store and beating the hell out of a guy and shooting at him. He won't shoot at him or anything. He's like, hey, I need to talk with you, and because his new directives won't let him do anything, so he ends up shocking himself and gets rid of, like, I don't know how shocking yourself. They just kind of casually throw away lines like he'd have to have a whole bunch of voltage go through him. So he goes out and he grabs something and shocks himself. And a lady knocks him off. His partner Lewis is in this movie too. She's in the first one. Knocks him off using a board. This fucking like 1,000-pound dude, and she just hits him with a board. And he goes flying back.
At least it's a wooden board.
Right? Yeah. No, that was actually, I guess, all right. But it's
amazing now.
It's a thin wooden board too, so it's just kind of hilarious. Like
it's like a 1x4.
There's so many unintentionally hilarious stuff in this, and there's the sound effects. When I said like Wile E. Coyote sort of stuff, they literally have sound effects that are like that in this movie, and it's so weird, it's so jarring. So anyway, he gets rid of all his directives, and he goes and he ends up killing Kane. And of course, the lady, or not killing him, putting on life support. And the lady's like, oh, I think you might be good. And she ends up basically cutting off his oxygen. They bring him back. They put him in Robocop 2. And this is where the movie kind of gets really good. But at the same time, they don't have any of the themes of the first movie of like, am I human or anything? They try to do something like that at the beginning with his wife. Totally thrown away. Do nothing else with it.
The first movie ends with him kind of being like, I am Murphy. And the second movie, it's all reset.
It starts with him basically being like, no, I'm just Robocop. So I hated that too. But anyway, they've got Robocop 2 now as Kane, and she thinks he can control him with Nuke because he was addicted to the drug. And so they had this big, long-drawn fight. A lot of it's done in stop motion. Well, actually, there's a whole scene where he ends up killing the kid and the girl and all this other stuff. But the fight at the end's really good. They got Phil Tippett, the guy who's really good at like stop motion and everything. Like, just look up Phil Tippett. He's a god. He's an absolute god. And it looks good. The design of the Robocop 2 robot is really good. But yeah, the movie just kind of ends, and it doesn't have any of the heart of the first movie, or not as much of the. It's like somebody watched the first movie and then keyed in on some of the things and been like, okay, let's amp those pieces up, but not really like what the emotional heartbeat of the story, like what makes it a classic. And so anyway, yeah, RoboCop 2 kind of comes off as still a really good movie. The special effects, it was made in 1990. Special effects in this hold up. They are so good. The music is so good. The cinematography is good. The acting, for the most part, pretty okay in most sections. However, all the other scenes and stuff like that, not so much. So for me, I think I'm gonna have to say this movie is nostalgic. It is not like
Whoa, wait.
Sorry.
You just gave away your vote.
No, I think
Yes.
it is probably the fact that they both brought nostalgia.
Nostalgia.
movies.
Yeah,
Oh, okay,
yeah.
okay.
And so, but yeah, the movie just, it had a bunch of really good parts to it. I almost wish they would remake this movie and fix some of it. Like, it is so close to what could have been an amazing movie, but they just didn't hit it right. So, RoboCop 2, nostalgic.
All right. I think we'll go on to the next one, and with this one, we're going back to Lucas,
Going back to the well.
back to Lucas, back to the Empire, back to The Empire Strikes Back. This movie has it all. Let me go through it. It has the abominable snowman. It has prophesizing ghosts. It has space gremlins. It has a giant mechanical boob that fires lasers. And a little bit of
Yoda.
light incest.
Oh my god! You called Yoda a space gremlin?
He's a space gremlin.
I'm literally like, what the hell were the space gremlins?
Yeah, that's the only thing I can think of.
And everything I just listed off was only in the first half of the movie.
Yeah.
This movie was so everything. It's so action-packed. The movie took place across so many different biomes. It was like, how much can we shove into one film and get away with it? I mean, you got bounty hunters, you've got freaking duels, you've got one-liners, you've got
Lando.
swamps, you got Lando Calrissian, you know? I mean, this movie was just Star Wars to the max. But I just kind of want to go through it a little bit, and if I get any kind of beats wrong, please correct me. But so it starts off, Battle of Hoth, like right into the action. They're trying to hide away from the Empire, trying to figure out their next steps, and overarching story of the movie is really just Vader's trying to find Luke. That's the whole movie. Vader's trying to do whatever he can to find Luke, and so they send a probe droid to the planet of Hoth, and they go out there, and I can't remember who it was that found him. I think it was Han Solo found the droid and destroyed it. And at that point, oh hey, the Empire knows where they are. So they go back and they're trying to prepare the defenses, and the Empire is there in like 2 seconds. I don't know how they got there so fast. They start attacking. The battle ensues. Really cool battle. Involves, tripping over AT-ATs with fishing line. I don't know how that works, but whatever. I mean, who would design a battle
must be
mech
the
like
only
that?
person
Do you
I've
know-
ever heard say AT-AT
do you know
instead of
who it
AT-AT.
is?
Yeah.
It's Phil Tippett again.
Oh, okay.
From
Yeah,
RoboCop.
Yeah, with the stop motion.
He's
Yeah.
the stop motion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jurassic
He's-
Park is what
He's
kinda
godlike.
stopped his stuff. But anyways,
Anyway, the Empire really destroys a lot of stuff, and they barely make an escape in the Millennium Falcon. They get out, and I missed the whole thing with Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker got
Tauntaun.
abducted by the abominable snowman. He gets hurt, and Han goes out to try to find him and save him. He does manage to find him. Luke kind of saves himself. But he's kind of walking out in the wilderness. Han finds him, opens up a dead Tauntaun and shoves Luke in it, and you get the famous line, "I thought they smelt bad on the outside."
Yeah. Harrison Ford is
Yeah,
he's a god.
yeah. Anyway, saves Luke. They all get back to the base. They all narrowly escape. But Luke had a vision from old Ben.
You go to Dagobah.
Yeah, that you will go to Dagobah. That's
There'll
why.
be
That's
a green
you-
gremlin.
You
Right.
will go see a space
There'll be a
gremlin.
space gremlin.
yeah, the space gremlin. And so Luke's like, okay, I got to go to Dagobah. So Luke goes off to Dagobah while everyone else just tries to escape the Empire. And Luke meets up with Yoda, trains with Yoda. Yoda's this like comedic relief of the movie, really more than anything else.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that was
That's
so
a
good.
pretty good Yoda impression. He
He
trains
did not
there.
edit that in.
He doesn't finish his training. He's typical, teenage-ish guy.
The
And he's like,
teenage angst. Of,
Yeah.
The girl that kissed me is in trouble. I need to go.
Yeah.
A 30-year-old
The
teenager.
sister who kissed me is in trouble. I need to go.
yeah, I'll get to a little more on that later.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, the moment he, feels the force and realizes his friends are in danger, he has to go save them, even though freaking Obi-Wan and Yoda are like, no, don't do it. You need to finish your training or they're all going to die anyway. And he's like, nope, I got to go do it. So he takes off.
No,
Anyway, there's a
there
whole...
is another.
Yeah, well, I'll get to that too. Anyway, there's the whole thing with Cloud City where they, the Millennium Falcon, its light speed engine fails 4 or 5 times throughout the entire movie.
It's
It's
a piece of junk, is what it
it's
is.
an ongoing
basically.
beat. Is it gonna work this time?
Yeah,
No, it
They-
didn't work this time.
They didn't have Ray around.
I don't know why, but they just had to hammer it in throughout the movie. Oh, nope, didn't work. Oh, nope, didn't work. Anyway, they get to Cloud City. Lando promises he's going to fix the Millennium Falcon. He takes them inside. And long story short, Vader's there. So captures Han Solo, puts him in the carbonite. And, Boba Fett is going to go take him over to Jabba the Hutt. So he takes off. All the rest of the folks, Luke gets there. Tries to save them, can't. And then there's the whole "I'm your father" scene. Luke falls down, almost dies. Yeah, and then
Arm chopped off too.
Leia and Luke communicate with each other. Leia realizes that Luke is back there, so they turn around.
Hanging on an antenna upside down.
Yeah. They save him.
Yeah.
They get out of there, and I think that's pretty much the movie. They
Non-stop
escape.
action.
Yeah. I mean, it really is pretty non-stop action. There's not a whole lot of breaks in it.
I don't remember
There's
this.
no huge
How
stakes,
does
though.
Lando explain himself away for the thing? Does he think he's just giving Han away, or
He thought that he was going to keep Han alive, and he was going to make everyone else stay in Cloud City. So at least Lando was like, okay, if they're in Cloud City, I can take care of them. They'll be all right. Vader just wants Luke, right? But Vader kept altering the deal, and we
pray I
pray
don't-
that we don't alter it further, right?
Yeah.
So, Lando, I kind of feel for him. He was trying to make the best of a bad situation. So, anyway, a couple things I wanted to point out. So the whole "there is another" thing that Yoda brings up. Apparently, at the time, that was supposed to be not about Leia. A lot of people say it was about Leia, but it was apparently supposed to be about some other character who was supposed to be a surprise character who came up in the third movie as Luke's sister. And it wasn't supposed to be Leia, which makes sense because if you watch the movie, Luke goes to go save Leia. If he hadn't left, Leia would be toast. So how would Yoda say, "Oh, there's another," if Luke wasn't, if he wanted Luke to stay? So that whole thing was kind of weird. And
Well, he knew they were both safe.
no, he didn't. The
Yoda?
one thing that they really
he felt through the Force. I mean, he told Luke to come there, so
He
he can
felt
definitely feel
through
Leia.
the Force that there was a Leia, but he never knew it was going to be safe because even Yoda says himself that you can't really see into the future using the Force. You can kind of get glimpses and kind of get,
Prophetic visions.
right,
Kinda,
but
yeah,
not
yeah.
necessarily know what the real future is going to be.
I never took it as that. I just felt like He knew that she was alive. There was another out there that could also had the similar power to Luke and the Force, and that was kind of like the backup plan. That's how I've always thought
The
of that
backup
since I was
plan
a
that
kid.
relied on Luke to be the person that saves her. So why not just stick with your
but
plan
not
A?
necessarily. She was being taken away at guard or whatever. If he hadn't shown up, maybe something else was going to happen once they were already away, where they would have escaped anyway. So maybe they were going to escape regardless.
Look, there was
Did
a
he say-
lot.
Wait, when did he say that? Like
He
there's
said that
another.
as Luke was taken off because they
Yeah.
were both upset.
Yeah.
Well, upset for
Leia
Jedi.
had already been saved by Luke, so I'm like, what do you mean? By...
No, Leia had not been saved.
Before
by
he
Luke.
got to Cloud City, he was
Before
leaving
that,
Dagobah.
yeah.
Oh well,
Right
yeah,
as he was
yeah,
That's
yeah.
where-
And Yoda
But
said,
I never
"No,
don't
there's
go.
another."
Yeah, I never took it as being prophetic though. Like there is another out there. It doesn't mean that that's gonna be ever come to like she'll ever even show up or can, I guess, be taught.
And there
as
was
Luke
another out
was.
there,
Yeah.
Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Anyway, this topic has been debated over and over and over throughout the years, and really, it's because of the fact that, true to fact, it wasn't supposed to be Leia. It was supposed to be another character, except they had to retcon that with the third movie. So,
Which would make sense because she literally used the freaking Force at the end of part 2.
To find him, right?
Yeah. So I'm like, how? So there's another?
well, so they don't. I mean, they made it seem like it could go either way with her having the Force or not by the end of the movie, and I don't necessarily know what Lucas's
It was
intention
just a brother-sister bond. That it wasn't. the
or
Force.
it could have been Luke's power reaching
Was
out to
reaching
someone,
out
right?
to her, yeah.
Where was I going with this? So this also goes back to the kiss, right?
Mhm.
So because of the fact that Leia wasn't actually supposed to be his sister in the second movie, it kind of makes the kiss less incesty.
No, George Lucas is just a pervert. That's the
Dude,
takeaway.
I've seen full-on family members just smooch each other on the lips, so I'm like, that's never bothered
I don't know,
me.
but they were doing
That has
it to
never bothered me.
prove that. Anyway, so that kind of explains why that happened.
Mhm.
But then once the third episode came out, or the episode 6 came out, it kind of made things a little weird.
Well,
But
what's your
yeah,
vote?
so well, hold on a second. So when this thing first came out, audience members actually thought it wasn't all that great, and thought that it was really a victim of middle movie syndrome. It never really had a distinct beginning. It never had a really distinct end. It was just a bunch of filler throughout the movie. And the weird thing is, throughout time, more and more people have begun to have the opinion that this was the best of the 3 original movies. I don't know what y'all think. We'll get to that during Judgment, though. But I've seen this movie multiple times, but I went to research for this episode and watched it again. And I actually do agree with those people that went and saw it in theaters in 1980. I think it is totally nostalgia. It is not the best of the original 3. And in
That's a
fact, it
surprise.
might be the worst.
Might be
So,
the worst.
it might be the
Yeah,
worst.
let's not talk about your
Yeah.
thoughts yet.
So that's my opinion. Nostalgia.
Don't kill him yet. We will talk about our thoughts
Don't-
shortly.
Yeah, don't kill him yet. Don't worry, I'll handle it.
All right. Well, I'll come up last. And I am talking robots.
Mm.
No, I'm using more of a cyborg. And
disguise?
everything. Well, I guess
Mhm.
mine's considered a cyborg too. Terminator 2. So I'm gonna go against a little against the grain, and instead of like giving the entire plot of the movie, I'm just gonna assume you've seen this movie and talk about some tidbits that I like and everything like that. So, a big thing, James Cameron is, I think, until recently, known for doing amazing sequels. I mean, he had Terminator, but then he did Terminator 2, which most would consider the best Terminator movie ever made.
One of the best movies ever made.
And then at the
Alright,
same
calm
time, he
down.
came in after
I'm
Alien.
all over this movie.
He came in after Alien and did Aliens, which
Mhm.
is considered by many the best Alien movie ever made in that whole series. So specifically what was a pretty big turn with Terminator 2 is, as everyone knows, is the fact that instead of being the bad guy in this one, he was now the good guy. Now, they sadly gave that away in the trailer when it came out, which I think they should have held on to, because when
they
you actually
did?
watch the movie,
That's disappointing.
yeah, they did it in the more recent Terminator movie too. It was it wasn't Salvation. One of the ones where like John Connor came back in time and he was like a bad guy thing now.
There's
They gave that
Genesis
away.
and Dark Fate were the two most
Genesis,
recent.
I think.
I think Genesis. Yeah.
They gave it away in the trailer, which I think is a big miss because they actually hold on to that for a good chunk of the beginning of the movie. They hold on to that at the beginning of the movie because like he's walking around with a shotgun and hunting John Connor. And there's also this cop who's looking for John Connor too. And he seems all nice when he's talking to people, just like in the first movie where they had what would eventually be John Connor's dad and everything like that.
Yeah.
He's trying to find him and this bad Terminator's trying to hunt him down. It's not until they essentially meet up in a hallway when they're at opposite ends of the hallway and John Connor's in the center that Schwarzenegger comes up and he's like, essentially, get down, and starts shooting at the other one. And you realize, oh shit, he's a Terminator too. Oh shit, Terminator 2. That was not intentional. That was not intentional. But
He's a Terminator also.
he's a Terminator
Boost
as
in
well.
the comments, please.
That was not on purpose.
Mhm.
But anyways, I think that completely like raises the stakes as well too, because like the new Terminator, liquid metal. I'm like, how the heck do you stop that guy? You can't blow him up. You can't like just shoot him and get rid of him. Literally, it just happens to luck finds out that they end up in that was it like a steel mill or something like that later on, so they can melt him at the end. But if not for that happenstance, I'm like, literally, how do you stop this freaking Terminator?
Mhm.
It's way worse than the T-800s and everything. So I think it really takes the genre of what this movie was and flipped it on its head to where it made the thing that tried to kill you is now protecting you. But you don't find that out initially, which is why Sarah, when she's in the little crazy thing, she sees them. She's like, "What the?" And she's trying to get away from him and freaking the hell out.
That's such an amazing scene
Yeah,
too.
Yes,
The
very
door
much.
opens and he walks in with the shotgun.
Yeah, and
turns
she's
towards
just
him,
like, "Oh shit," because she doesn't see
shit.
her son yet. And then like it does get some silly things in there with the Hasta La Vista baby and all that kind of hokey pokiness. But the fact that so many sequels don't, in my opinion, have a direct tie into the first one, whereas this one does. The whole reason, according to this movie, that Skynet's going to be coming to be a thing is the fact that Terminator 1 happened, and they still had the chip and the arm, and they're just like, what the hell are these things? And they start experimenting, and essentially becomes this like time loop that, the chicken created the egg, but the egg also created the chicken. And the only way to essentially get rid of all of it is the fact that they have to go and get rid of the stuff from the first Terminator. And then it actually ends up becoming like very sad. You actually feel for the fact that they've become attached to him.
Mhm.
And he's like, no, we're not done yet. Like, there's still stuff here that could be turned into this. And he's like, I cannot self-terminate. And they have to kill him.
Yeah.
And so there is a huge emotional thread throughout this movie. And I think it plays off very well. Not to mention, one of the best action scenes ever, in my opinion, is when the T-1000 is driving that big-ass truck, chasing him down like the water spillway when he's on the motorcycle trying to catch John Connor. And that whole scene is just amazing. Now, when you watch it nowadays with, 4K stuff, you can be like, yep, that's not Terminator. That's not Schwarzenegger. Nope, that's not him either. That's not him either.
That's a stunt man.
But if you get past that,
Schwarzenegger ain't no Wesley Snipes.
yeah. And I mean, and thinking about when this movie came out, the CG with the liquid metal, like you can tell it's a bit dated, but it still stands up.
Yeah.
And the scene where in that spillway when the truck like blows up and the metal thing starts walking out of the fire and it transitions into the real
So
guy,
good.
and how they had to sync that step up and make it look perfect. I'm just like, this movie totally holds up, and I would argue is one of the best sequels of all time. So it's definitely cool. Definitely cool.
All right. Judgment time.
Judgment
It is
time for Judgment
Judgment
Day.
Day.
Perfect.
Should I go first?
Go ahead, man.
You wanna?
So, we're in judgment phase. Okay. This, I think it's like one of my defining childhood movies for me.
I forgot
Absolutely.
the music too.
The music, like I will never forget the music, which like starts hard and then it's like the sad music that follows it. And as you were talking about it, I think even in Terminator 3 is when John Connor kind of reflects it and he says, the Terminator has been telling them the whole time that Judgment Day is unavoidable. It's coming. No matter what path you take to avoid it, you still end up in that timeline. And
I think
so
Terminator 3 brings that in. I don't think that was as much as in here.
No, it's not in here. But in 3, it's
But they
basically
said it's been postponed.
I'm here to kind of like get you guys to safety because the entire movie he knows that they're going like there's no avoiding this. So he's just trying to save them. So even in 2, they feel like, oh, we've avoided it, but it doesn't. But there's some burned in memory scenes is him like, stealing jacket, showing up naked, putting those sunglasses on.
Biker bar.
The guy, when they're both running, the doctor with like the injection cap in his mouth, and then he looks and the Mercury T1000 walks through the metal bars.
Yeah, that's
he's
also
just like,
done very well.
He's just like the thing drops out of his mouth and he's just like, what the, The scenes I'm remembering, has a part of him gets stuck on the car after in the chase scene, and then the liquid kind of comes and joins
and
up.
goes back into his foot.
He calls home, and Arnold figures out, he's like, both your parents are dead.
What's
that
wrong
scene.
with Woofy?
Woofy, yeah.
Your parents are dead.
No, but like you're talking about those transition scenes. Like, what about the black and white tile thing? Where
where he just like
slowly
slowly
forms up.
Yeah, forms up in it. When they go to the scientist's home and he cuts his arm out and opens it up and takes it.
yeah.
That is an amazing scene.
Brutal.
It was brutal when he like rips everything up. But yeah, the whole ending fight, the Mercury's, the bad guys, CGI still, like I agree, still stands up quite a bit. He shoots him with like the grenade launcher thing, and it just explodes into a million things.
Oh, he's got like
his
parts
head's like
of it.
way over here, upside down.
Yeah.
Like,
and I would say
everywhere.
that's actually the worst effect of the whole movie, and it's still good.
I think because that one is actually they made a prop
yeah.
of that part. I think it wasn't animation bits. Him walking through the metal bars is like still looks pretty decent, is what I think. And obviously, when he goes the final emotional thing, and he's like, "There's one more chip to be destroyed," and he's just like taps like this, and is like, "I cannot. My programming doesn't let me self-destruct, so you need to send me down." And the thumb going down, into the molten like iron metal thing, and it's just. I'll Be Back is also from that, right?
It's from the first one.
It's from the first one, is it? Oh shit. Yeah.
He might have said it again in the
No,
second
he
one.
did. He did say it again, but it
But
originally
the
came
original
from the
came
first one.
from the
He
first
said it
one,
once or twice in his movies, like.
I think every Terminator movie has "I'll be back."
He's
in it,
he's
but
got to
started
bring
in
it
the
up.
first one.
Yeah.
So, what is your vote then?
I would cool.
Okay,
I
I figured that's what you were
absolutely
going with all
cool.
you're saying,
It's
but I was like,
It's not. I mean, I think even if they made it now, that's how we're judging it, right? If they made it
they've
now,
made several sequels since this, and they've not been good.
and if they made it that same way, which I think it's because it's just they're still believable. People are what sells is her being terrified. His mom being terrified when he walks in is what sells how terrible it is. And the first movie is
And the
also
story
really
arc she
good,
has
but
to
yeah,
go through from being so terrified to
like,
actually trusting him.
trusting him with her son, and all of that. I think they really made good use. I generally feel like movies were better when CG was like, because they know they couldn't do good CG and they kept it small and try to keep more things just set pieces.
Very practical.
Very practical. I think it.
That semi going
Yeah.
through the bridge into the
Yeah.
spillway.
Yeah.
All practical. Amazing.
So, I mean,
Speaking of, that's a good segue. The first time I actually ever cussed in front of my father was during this movie in the theater, and it was during that truck when it hit the thing. I said, "God damn it!" and my dad's like, "Don't ever cut, don't cuss," which is funny because my friends
and he's
and I
like,
all
"Fuck you,
cuss.
Dad! I
We
gotta
just-
fucking talk about this movie."
But yeah, like Andy said, there's just so many memorable scenes in this movie. one of the greatest endings of all time. Could have been the biggest downer, really. Like everything about this movie was actually about hope. Even though there was like this future that would seem like it was inevitable, that like humanity was going to be wiped out. It was about hope. It was about connecting with like your family and trust, and like, you know, that character arc of like she had to learn how to trust him because he was programmed to protect his son, and like all that stuff in there. Like the themes were just really good, and then like the final scene where he like has like he does the thumbs up. The whole thing, like if they would have just lowered him in and it would have been like a stoic thing, would not have been very impactful. But him just doing that simple thumbs up, that is
Like everything's gonna be okay.
that is
It's all
one
right.
of two great finger gestures in movie history for me.
Wait, what's the other
What's
one?
the other
What's
one?
the other
The
one?
second one is in Constantine,
Oh.
when the devil was
when he
sending
starts
him to
ascending, he's just like,
when the devil wanted to send him to hell, and they're gonna
Then he
take
just
they're gonna
takes his
take
fingers out,
Constantine
yeah.
to heaven, and they do this pan up, and he's just like this to the devil. Why he's going to heaven? Brilliant. Brilliant. We need more scenes like that. But the thumbs up is right there with it.
Yeah.
And it could have been a total downer for the movie, but it wasn't. It was like it was hopeful. Again, goes back to hope. Like there was hope. He sacrificed himself, and there was hope for that. Also, there's like other scenes, like didn't even touch on like I think his name is Miles Dyson, like the scientist who
That's
found
right,
the chip.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Anyway, Dyson, like there's that one scene where he got
Yeah, where
fatally
he's like,
shot. And he's like, yeah,
And then he just dropped.
yeah, and he
Oh.
was basically waiting to die to blow up everything. I was like, that to me, I was like, the acting in this movie, just
Yeah.
all around. Also, I never ever want to be near anybody I don't know while drinking a milk carton because of this movie.
Oh,
because of this movie, because the T-1000
She goes.
goes like that and
Yeah,
just goes right
well,
and just
there's one gripe I have about that scene. She stabs him, and she still talks for a while. So the camera panned over a good 45 seconds after he was stabbed to the
No
face,
blood.
and it's not until the camera goes by that the hand finally falls off the freaking jug.
yep.
So he was able to grip it that whole time, dead.
What?
And then-
Whatever.
sticky.
It's still cool.
Yeah,
But-
but something else I should actually mention that just popped in my head. I thought this was hilarious when he has the big old like rotating multi-gun and he's like shooting
Minigun,
around the
yeah.
cops and he's not allowed to kill any of them. It said like casualties and it says 0.0, and I was like, so you can have a % of a casualty?
Yeah. Oh, that was awesome scene too. With the big old machine Gatling gun or whatever they call those things. That thing was badass. So yeah, my vote on this is it's definitely cool. I wish we had more movies that went like this, like good writing, good like themes, everything. Pulls all like I talked about Robocop. Same thing, and then Robocop 2 just kind of forgot about all that. Like the glue was not there, and this had all the glue and everything else to go with it. So very cool.
So my vote doesn't matter. But
And knowing you, I'm probably glad it doesn't.
and all three of you pretty much summed up the entire movie through your
Yeah.
various comments.
Yep.
So I mean, I guess it's a good thing you didn't explain the plot. All that to be said, I don't think there's much more that I can add to this. However, I will say for the first time in a long time, I do agree with Jeffrey. This is a very
Jeez.
cool movie.
That was tense.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
they're gonna.
That's what he's like, my vote doesn't matter. I'm like, good.
I'm like, Jeffrey's gonna fly at him right now.
No, I mean, I can't. I mean, who in their right mind would not say this movie is cool?
I was about to hand you a milk carton and tell you to take it.
right?
Take
Yeah, I
a
was
sip.
close. I was
Let's see
close,
what
man.
happens.
I was gonna go
Yeah.
find one.
Oh, good. All right, so unanimous, cool then.
Empire Strikes Back, the action-packed sequel. What do y'all think?
I'll go first on this one.
So you vote. Wait, you said
He
nostalgia.
said nostalgia.
said
He said
nostalgia.
Your
nostalgia.
nostalgia. Okay.
Because
He's
I
wrong.
hold
Absolutely
on.
wrong.
Wow. Okay, you'll go last. Because I agree with the people that went in the theater when they first saw it. It really does suffer from middle movie syndrome. There are some iconic lines. There are some iconic scenes. Yet the story itself doesn't really need to be there, in my opinion.
So, here's where you're wrong. Actually, no. Funny enough, I actually agree with almost all of that. And when I was a kid, I actually considered this kind of the least entertaining. However, as an adult, and this movie got very dark, had a lot of like different themes and stuff like that stuffed into it. Like he was trying to figure out who he was, like where he was gonna, what's his place. He wasn't some young plucky dude, from small farm town nowhere, and then comes up and faces evil and wins. No, he doesn't know what to be in life now. And this movie didn't have to, and I absolutely am a huge like proponent of this. You don't have to save the fucking universe every time for it to be a grand adventure. I don't like that. Raising the stakes is one of the
Always
worst things that
world's
happens.
ending and we have to
World's
save it. I
ending
hate
and
it.
everybody's
Yeah.
got to be saved. And this kind of reels it all back in. It actually reconnects you with the characters. It reconnects you with Luke and what he's going through. It kind of tells you who these people are. And like, that there are people, like even like the kiss scene and stuff like that. But then there's like, she also knew that she kind of had feelings for Han and things like that. Like there's more real people things going on in this. And I really enjoyed that. And also all the iconic scenes, like you can remember, even the robot from the very beginning, like the look of it, like that was super cool. The whole, like, I don't even remember the abominable ape as much as I remember the Tauntaun scene.
Snowman.
Whatever he is. And I think that, the ending, of course, like the whole thing on Cloud City, Lando, like he's such a good character. It was a very good character-driven story that didn't need to raise the stakes and save a world or save a universe to tell the story it needed to tell. And I love that. And then finding out, like, it's because it's also supposed to be kind of a big space soap opera. And the whole ending with like, Luke finding out or Vader admitting like, I am your father. And then Luke literally not wanting to accept that to the point of like, I'm just going to kill myself.
Yeah. That's why he
And
jumps
that is crazy. Like thinking about that, like that's kind of dark.
See, but you say that if you did you watch this for research?
No.
Okay.
I'm going
If
completely off of what
if you go back and watch that, his acting in that scene, Mark Hamill, is so terrible.
Yeah, well,
And,
we
like
don't
the way
talk-
he moves his mouth is like, yeah.
just go watch the prequels and you'll feel great about his acting.
Yeah. Okay, I guess.
But anyway, like
Yeah.
acting aside, just story and stuff like that, things that like, over time, like I'm like, yes, I love this. I think this was great. It connected me to the characters. It's kind of like what I was just talking about with the glue. This is kind of the glue that holds the trilogy together because, there's some shark jumping in the third movie. And the first movie was like, just some sort of like tale of like, young kid does good. This kind of put everything and grounded it all. And I absolutely appreciate it. I think it's very cool for it.
That's a cool. Okay.
It's a cool from Mike.
I'll say, I think I saw The New Hope recently on a big screen. Kansas City Symphony actually had live symphony playing to the movie, and it was an amazing experience.
Awesome.
Where I was at the same time thinking, these guys are terrible actors. Like Harrison Ford with the constantly surprised and perpetually stupid face that he has, where you're like, that's not, and you can tell Mark Hamill is still very raw. If anything, Princess Leia was the character that was probably played the best in the series. She doesn't ham it up too much or anything. She has a very even tone kind of arc, and it's pretty good. Now, so those are parts that I agree. I think, so when you said the middle movie syndrome, I literally wrote down, it's not middle movie syndrome, it is better movie syndrome. Compared to the first movie, this kind of reason why George Lucas should not direct. He should helm or, be in charge of a project
write
and
the
build the
script.
universe.
Yeah, totally
right?
write the script either.
And you guys missed a
Like
big
Zack
tidbit.
Snyder.
Do you know who directed this movie?
Irvin Kershner.
Do you know what else he made?
RoboCop 2.
RoboCop 2.
Yes.
The
I was,
same guy.
I was going to point that out. when we did our
RoboCop
segue
2
over.
was the last movie, so he did that movie and he was like, okay, I'm not making movies again. But-
He's like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna give it up.
He'd been
So-
directing for 40 years at that point. He was done.
right? So the script was written by different people, not Lucas, directed by someone who was away enough from the project where they were like, we need to make this a good movie. So Yoda being this funny person, then turning into a mythical like sage person towards the later end. He's like, this guy's like mad. He's not Yoda. Is what like like there's this, you put gremlin in my mind now, but like there's this green gremlin goblin that's running around eating all the snacks. And then he realizes it's Yoda, and Yoda says some like really cool dialogue actually. Right, like he's like, you didn't, but I didn't believe, and that's why you didn't lift it, kind of like, so he says it backwards, but like that became legendary. Really cool character, fleshed out. The actual meaning of Jedi is like really much more fleshed out, right? Like Yoda isn't like, let's do some laser sword fights. It's more actually
Being at one with the Force.
yeah, actually try. How can you actually use the Force? Your lightsaber is just a tool. Like your ability to use the Force is the bigger thing. So
And how the Force is integrated with everything around you,
right?
all
Yeah.
of life.
You have to like be able to feel it and all that. It gets dark,
Feel it. Sorry.
right? Like they purposefully they wanted it to dark. Like I said, Temple Doom they wanted it darker than Empire Strikes Back. It's dark. He goes into that cave and fights Darth Vader, and the
Fake Vader. Yeah.
helmet blows up, and it's Luke's head inside of it. So it's like, what does that mean? Like, there's a lot of depth to it, which I think it's like he's killing the evil within himself, the dark side within himself.
Or he's seeing his own path, like what he could become, and it scares him.
Yeah, exactly. And it's every beat, the animation's really good. It still holds up. Like in the asteroid belt, it's like bobbing and weaving because again the hyper belt broke again, hyperdrives broke, and they hide inside some giant worm and then shoot out of there. Lando is such a cool character. More expansion of the universe with the interaction of bounty hunters.
I will agree, like pretty much all of the movie, the animation was very good and still holds up. However, the sword
It
fights
depends which version.
were
did you
pretty
watch?
terrible.
Which version did you watch?
The one on Disney Plus.
Okay,
Just
that's
most
got all the
recently.
stuff that goes added to it in like
Yeah,
2002.
to make it a little bit better. Yeah. But the sword fights still were pretty bad, and I didn't like the look of the lightsabers either. They're really thin.
Yeah,
You know,
Oh,
they're not
were they
look like little
almost
the
rods.
actual.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
get
actually
it.
always a debate. Like, do you like the pre-Disney lightsabers versus the Disney lightsabers? Because
Yeah.
some don't like the Disney lightsabers.
Even, but compared to the first movie, the sword fight is actually, I'm calling it sword fight, but the saber fight is actually choreographed and better. The first one is like some weird between Obi-Wan and you're like, why are they afraid to fight?
Yeah,
Kinda,
yeah, yeah.
like,
Compared to the first one, which is almost nothing,
Yeah.
like
Because
it's much better than nothing.
because
Yeah.
it's an old man versus a guy in a suit that can barely move.
Yeah.
And Luke shows up and he's like, I've been through training. In reality, we know he missed training because he was, I'm gonna run after the girl. And so Vader just overpowers him easily.
He
just
got a
like,
hit on
pat,
Vader, though.
pat, pat. Like,
He did get
Well,
a hit on.
One
let's
hit.
break this down instead of breaking the entire movie down again.
No, let's do
I
it.
think-
No. No.
I think it's cool. The AT-ATs, things like that, things that were added, made the universe actual, real, and more.
AT&T is making phone calls.
AT&T making phone phones, yeah.
Most people say, like,
AT-20 one of
the
the tiny
AT-ST.
ones.
Well, there's
Or they say
AT-ST, and then everybody says AT, but I have heard AT-AT.
No, I do too.
I always
It
call
just
it
makes me kind of
AT&T,
like
yeah.
smirk when I hear people actually spell it out.
Yeah.
Too.
I think it's cool.
Cool.
I really
Okay.
think it's cool.
So I've already revealed
Yeah.
my thoughts, but I want to speak to your heart here. Okay.
Whoa.
So
I don't know because I
Yeah.
feel like I'm
the
a little
only-
vulnerable right
the
now.
only thing
Kalima.
I will point out and agree with the entire training session on Dagobah. I actually find boring. Now when Yoda's acting like kind of like the imbecile
The goof,
before revealing
yeah.
himself, that's actually like a test to see how he reacts and like his patience level, which is why he
Right.
points it out. that
He's
you're
like,
not
I can't
patient.
train
Yeah.
him. He has
But-
no patience.
I mean, the entire opening on Hoth, best like opening scene to any of the Star Wars movies, and probably the best battle scene of any of the Star Wars movies, I would argue. But here's the thing that I think
As
most people
the
were
boob lasers.
missing, and you are kind of missing right now when you talk about agreeing with people who saw this in theaters. 99.9% of movies, you go there and the heroes win. There's a happy ending. Everyone goes home, all cheerful, right? This is one of the first movies to completely say, fuck that. Everything goes bad. Everything ends horribly. Like, nothing goes to plan. And so the idea is, like, the bad guys might actually win. And then, like you point out, Mark Hamill's, to your words, bad acting.
Oh, it was so
Think
terrible.
about it. This is the most evil person around, alive, and essentially trying to enslave the quote-unquote world, the universe, right? And you just found out he's your dad. That's where all like,
You're gonna, you're gonna ugly cry.
Exactly.
You're gonna ugly cry, and that was Mark Hamill ugly cry.
I don't know about that.
Nothing.
I'm sorry, you're trying to
Nothing.
redeem his terrible acting in that scene, and I don't think so.
prepared him for that. And also that acting,
Apparently, he didn't prepare for that scene either.
actually, yes, he did. He was specifically told how to act. There was 3 or 4 people that knew the big reveal, because the guy that's in the Darth Vader suit, that's not the line he delivered. And he didn't find out that he was the father until he saw this movie in theaters. The only people that knew were Mark Hamill, George Lucas, I think the director of this, and then I'm spacing on his name.
James
The
Earl
voice
Jones?
of James Earl Jones.
Yeah.
Only 4 people in the world that knew that reveal was coming. So not only the fact that this is a movie that doesn't let the heroes win, doesn't let the good story prevail, which is completely different than anything people were used to seeing, it also has arguably the biggest shock reveal of any movie in history, to the point that anytime something like that happens, people reference this movie. So to me, I'm like, that's why this movie is not only cool, but is considered by the vast majority, I think, of Star Wars fans to be the best Star Wars movie of all 9 of them, of the main, Skywalker saga, because it stands alone and it is different than every other one of them.
It twisted expectations and did it right.
And 2 cliffhangers, like dad part, and Han Solo is also gone.
Carbon
Like there's like a couple of
Right,
2
they're
things
gonna
stand up.
go
They're like,
find him. Yeah.
everything's gone to shit, and that's where the movie's like, I get where you're coming from. In that time, people must have been like very pissed, like, because for us,
Because they're used to a standalone story and
Yeah.
it ends happy.
And
for us, it's like we
there wasn't a
we
third
saw
movie
all
at the
3 at
time.
once, right? Like we didn't have to wait, and they were like, oh shit, I have to wait 3 more years or whatever next.
But
movie
that's the
was.
thing. It's like, if the movie doesn't really stand alone, why is it good?
It does
It
stand
does stand
alone.
alone.
How's
It
not
doesn't
alone?
stand alone. If you didn't have the first or the third one, this wouldn't have a point of existing. I don't. Anyway, hey,
If
y'all.
you didn't have the first or the second one, the third one has no point in
yeah.
existing.
Take
Yeah,
the L,
exactly.
Mike. Just take the
No,
L.
I'm. You know what? I'll. Whatever. That's all I say is whatever. I'm hoping that there's someone out there deep in the comments that agrees with me.
Nope. Anyway,
Moving on.
Next movie.
Next movie, RoboCop. I said this was nostalgic. It has some good parts, and it has some wacky parts. It's also very brutal, very dark, but throws in comedic humor, especially with kids. It's crazy. So anyway, I consider this movie very nostalgic. So yeah, who wants to?
I
take
would
the
very
first
much
one?
like to go first on
Okay.
this.
Oh my god! All right.
So I go deep on RoboCop.
Okay.
I've had RoboCop toys, seen all 3 of the RoboCop movies, the RoboCop TV show, and the RoboCop TV movie trilogy.
What about the video game?
What about the new video?
I
game?
did play the video game as well. There's been a couple of them that came out, and I played it, and it was not as good.
The most recent one
The,
is good.
the new one's really good.
No. Oh, you mean the brand?
The
new
brand
That
new- the one
that
from
I
like a
had
year or
not. I
two
was thinking
ago,
like the old like.
who
80s
also
one
made
where
the
it's a side
Terminator
scroller.
game, which is also really good.
Yeah,
by the way.
those are both on my list.
How
of
about
play.
the
I
new-
don't game as often.
I know,
as
I know.
But those, yeah.
How about the new RoboCop?
What?
That came out a few years ago.
Oh, the 2014
Well,
one.
Yeah.
The one.
Not
is it
14.
2014?
Oh,
I think it was
the
2014.
movie.
Yeah, it
The
had.
movie.
Yeah,
Oh,
there was a
yeah, I've
reboot.
seen that movie
The
as
reboot,
well. That
yeah.
one is not as good. But like to the point that like even with RoboCop 3, that movie is garbage. But I actually liked the little flying suit thing that was on him because I liked the big guns that hooked up to his sides. But now, could I have done without the flying? Sure. But I liked how it put the big gun things on his arm.
You take
I
a
actually liked
tank
that.
and you put these little baby wings on them. Do you think it's cool?
I
Come on!
just said the guns part that attached to his arm. Because you remember, it sat on his back and had things that come down his arms and put big old freaking like cannons on his arms. That's the part that I like. The flying I can take a miss. But that movie's garbage. But that's why it's like it's very like anytime it's RoboCop, I want to say cool, but it's like this movie's not. There are elements of it that I can see what happened because like they brought in the RoboCop extra like the new RoboCop to fight him. That's kind of what happens in the RoboCop TV movies that were made. Essentially, they bring in there was another cop and they died and they turned him in one of these too, but it was a black guy and they made it a black RoboCop, but it wasn't like the black like with the 2014 movie or whatever. Like it was actually kind of the shiny metal, but it was like a dark colored metallic, and they had programmed him to hunt him, so it was literally RoboCop versus RoboCop. They were cheesy because it was a TV movie, but they were still freaking fun, right? So just because I love this character so much, it's hard for me to say it, but it's definitely nostalgia.
Real quick, since you're such a big fan, RoboCop 2, the design of RoboCop 2, like the actual RoboCop 2 in the movie, what's your thoughts?
Oh, you mean like the bad guy RoboCop?
The bad guy, Kane.
Okay, I was like, what? I was like,
no, the actual RoboCop 2 character. Kane.
There's elements I liked, elements I didn't. When it opens up and shows a little screen with his face and that weird like computer face, I hate that part so much.
I absolutely loved it.
But the design of the robot part, I liked.
I think, yeah.
Wait, hold on. I'll go next.
Oh, you want to go next?
Yeah, because I want you to be a judge. I'm just gonna.
Because you oppose.
I'm gonna start with it and say
he's never even seen the movie.
I've never
cool just to go
I've never
me.
seen the movie.
God damn it!
And all I have is y'all's description to go by, and it really seems to call out Cyborg from the Teen Titans to me. So, and I thought he was cool, so I think RoboCop 2 is cool. Enough said.
No, the super satiric newscasts and the commercials in
commercials
RoboCop
in
2 are top tier. They're hilarious, just like one, amazing. So there is that.
Oh yeah, I forgot to reference this when you were doing it earlier. I'd buy that for $1.
Yeah, that's from the first movie though.
Yeah, I know it is.
But
I just wanted to reference because like you said something, I was like, oh, that'd be a perfect jump to reference it, but I didn't want to interrupt you, and then I forgot.
Yeah.
So cool for me for stupid reasons.
So you're nostalgic.
Yeah, I'm
You're
nostalgic.
cool.
He's wrong. What are you?
All right.
Again, he's been wrong twice now.
Here's I think you said the music was good in RoboCop 2. I think it's worse than 1. 100% worse than 1.
I just watched it last night, and I thought it was amazing.
If you saw 1 and then 2, I think you'd think it's worse. I don't know why
I'd agree with that, but I wouldn't call it bad.
I don't. Yeah,
I would
it's
see
not
like
bad.
is RoboCop top tier?
It's
Yeah, but it is in every other
catchy,
category.
samey sounding.
RoboCop actually have the theme song.
I don't know why they didn't. They had to reset. Why his name is Murphy in it, right?
Yep.
So Peter
Weller.
Weller. So he's in the end, he's like, I'm Murphy of RoboCop 1, right? Like he says, I'm Murphy. Who are you? The whole question is, are you RoboCop or are you Murphy? And he's having this weirdness going on. And he's like, I'm Murphy. And then the second movie, he's like, I've already been reset from the first movie, so I have to redevelop emotions again. But he's still stalking his ex-wife is again like, he's showed up again in the neighborhood. What's he doing?
They give up on that in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Never reference it again.
The bad guy in this is just some dude selling drugs that doesn't seem to be that bad. And in the first one,
Clarence Boddicker.
Yeah, Clarence is they torture him when they kill him. Like there's just so much gore, and you hate that guy as a bad guy. In this, Kane is kind of like, yeah, whatever.
He kind of fell into being it.
He's
like
a cultish
They
leader.
weren't nemesis or anything.
Yeah, and then the weirdo lady who does like a panel of everyone is like, what do you want in RoboCop? And one guy's like, I want him to talk about the environment. I wish he would talk to people instead of shooting them and like the weird shit like that. And then she does that to, I think, sabotage him, I guess, whatever. So they do that. The best part is when RoboCop 2, the Kane RoboCop, shows up. The animatronics is like not animatronics, sorry, the
stop motion.
stop motion bits, the puppetry of stop motion and everything is really cool. Where like RoboCop literally jumps on that guy, and I was like, how the fuck did they do that? It was really good.
The scene where they're actually at the top and like Kane is holding on and RoboCop's below and he's like, "You're coming with me," and it just goes down. Like, that's so good. There's so many good parts in this movie.
There's good parts in it, but for me, it's nostalgia. I feel like one was good. They should have taken it, and the OCP is still on the stupid like I'm gonna build a city, and then they're still making more RoboCops, even though they have one. They're still like, no, we need to make one more. We need to make another one. And all of them keep failing terribly, killing themselves because it's torture. But yeah, so I think it's
one was
nostalgia.
Ed 209.
Yeah.
I actually think the Kane RoboCop.
Have
just
you literally
the
not even seen the
design,
first
so good.
RoboCop? Have you
I
not seen
have-
anything
I
we're
have
talking about?
seen. No, I have seen the
If
first.
you love
RoboCop.
Starship Troopers,
Oh my gosh.
this is also the
I
over-the-top
don't think he's seen Starship
capitalism.
Troopers.
I have seen Starship Troopers.
Okay, we referenced
doing an interrogation.
No, we referenced it earlier, and you just sat there like I assumed you didn't know it.
Oh no, I
I'm
love
doing my
Starship
part.
Troopers. Yeah.
But it's an over-the-top capitalist criticism of capitalism and what will happen. And some of these things actually came true. But yeah, I think that 2 is too diluted. I don't know why they reset. I know the production was like rushed for
They
it.
barely had a script. It was all super rushed.
The director gave up on his film career after that. Is like, I'm not making movies. It's like
That's how bad the movie was. He said,
killed his
"I
spirit."
quit."
He's like, this is bad. I'm not doing it again. So
We should do the last one.
Yep, let's do the last one. Speaking of
Trampling of the Doom, guys.
middle movies,
Do you want me to
I
think it's
I can start off.
nostalgia.
Oh wait, hold on.
That was my big thing. I'm the one who brought it up, so
Oh,
I'm just
okay,
saying
yeah.
my take was it's nostalgia.
I'll start and I'll keep it short. The monkey brain scene truly traumatized me and gave me nightmares. Even more so than the heart scene. So much so that I still get them today every once in a while. And I don't know why. I think it's just because of the helplessness of it and the animal cruelty of it. And for that reason, I'm voting nostalgia.
Or maybe it's
Because of
good.
monkey
because
No
it
matter
has such an
how
effort.
good anything else in the movie is, because it has traumatized me for life, I cannot say it's cool.
I'll jump in. So this movie is, in my opinion, so bad
Oh, God.
that I seem to continuously do like a memory reset and wipe my mind of this film, because every now and then I'll just get on a kick. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna watch the Indiana Jones movies, and then I watch this movie and it's like a brand new movie for me. It's like, I don't remember this or this or this or this. And then by the time I get to the end of it, I'm like, God, that movie sucked. And then I move on. So because of that, it has gotten to the point that I'm like, when I'm like an Indiana Jones kick, I watch Raiders, and then I watch The Last Crusade, and then I'm done. I literally just watch those two, and I stop. Because, like, I mean, to the point you made earlier, like, there's really no reason for him to be there.
Yeah.
I lost my rocks. Well, then go fucking get them. Like, there's no real reason for him to be there at all. Like, I don't know. I just... It's a pointless waste of the character, and just like they've had with some of the more recent movies. But to the point that was made earlier, I very much am looking forward to at some point playing the game. What's it, the Golden Circle?
Yeah.
To try to live some of the good Indiana Jones stuff, because like you said, the game's
It's
really
pretty good. It's pretty good.
Absolutely nostalgia. Absolutely, no doubt about it.
I wanted there is a shortage of time, so I didn't want to do the. I didn't want to make it seem like if you like it, you're a racist kind of way. That's
Probably a good call out.
because there might be layers where Steven Spielberg was trying to poke fun at how people view Asian people by portraying it over the top in that caricature way. I just feel that might be too many layers beneath below that, like if they made that scene right now, it'd be chaos.
Oh yeah.
So I just want to caveat that by saying I didn't want to make it seem like you're a racist if you like it. It's there are people who love it. The cart scenes and all the set pieces towards the last half of the movie are actually fun.
Well,
Pretty cool.
there's one good thing to come out of this movie, and I'm spacing on his name, but Short Round.
Short Round. He's
And-
the best part of the movie.
Well, not just that.
oh.
The actor as he's
Yeah.
grown up and the stuff
Yeah.
he's doing now. That
He
I think
won the
is-
Oscar.
That
Yeah.
actor is the best thing.
Oh, he's also in Goonies.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
The thing I missed before was Short Round should have been in more Indiana Jones movies because he was actually a pretty fun. He saves him several times in the movie. Is a decent sidekick.
Wonder why he wasn't.
I don't know. They just abandoned
But
him.
I mean,
School?
this, The Goonies, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, and there's a new movie he's got coming out. I think it's called Love Hurts. I think it is. That looks really exciting too. That I plan to see.
Yep.
So,
All right.
your thoughts?
My take on this, so my friends and I, growing up, we saw this, absolutely traumatized, same scene. And also, it was not that, like, everybody made a big deal about the heart pulling and stuff like that, but for my friends and I, it was just like, call your mom, like that, and we would do that
It's fun to
each
meme
other,
about it. Yeah.
just randomly.
That's
like,
the
it could
fun
be,
thing with like the Kalima.
you could be walking down the hall of school or something like that. You hear that, you hear that, or you do that, and it's great every time. And this movie is another example, just like Empire Strikes Back, where you don't have to save the freaking world. You can
No.
just save a small village. And this actually shows his heart a little bit, I think, too. Because, like, you know, it's like he's this grand adventurer who basically just goes and steals shit. Well, this time he actually kind of reined all that in, and he decided he saw some people that needed some help. And so, you know, he was like, well, this is also kind of up my alley, so maybe I can kind of do something about it. So I really thought that kind of added a lot to his character, that he's an actual,
I don't
like,
know.
decent
In the
human
opening,
being.
he's giving the Chinese man something and taking a diamond, which to me felt like a sleazy dark market deal.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like he's just doing
I
it
know.
for
I didn't
money.
say he's a
Yeah.
good person all the time,
Okay.
but in that particular scenario, when he saw people in need and help,
Right.
he helped them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I thought that actually added more to his character than the other movies even did. When it when you know it comes down to brass tacks, when you're just like, what kind of person are you? In that situation, he went and he helped. And sure, there was MacGuffin stones. It made no sense. Now that you brought it, and
I'll say this. Even when they set off to the palace, which they don't need to if they're trying to go to Delhi, he's like, why are you going there? He turns to Willie Scott, right? Kate Bradshaw, and he doesn't say to save these people. He says fame and glory or something like that. He says that.
he's keeping up his persona.
Yeah, whatever. He's just like, I want the stones.
I'm
What do you
just trying to talk
want?
about my take.
Okay.
Right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, let him-
my
let him
take,
cook here.
my take on that. So I did, and I actually, now that you like, I had no, like, I just assumed this was all made up bullshit. So I never even thought like racist or anything like that, because I just assumed it was all made up bullshit. Actually, I never thought anything was real about the Last Crusade, like the places or anything like that. I didn't know any of that was real. So again, I didn't know about, and I wish they would have done what you just described, like some of the stuff they could have pulled on and, like, you know, actually been there and like kind of done a similar story to this, like something that's like not grounded, but something that's not like, I gotta save the world from Nazis. You know, I really like that about the movie, and there's like just a lot of fun scenes, like the like he has to put his hand, like she has to put her hand into something to like pull a lever that, like, you know, and she has kind of a character arc. I know you don't like her because she screams and stuff, but I thought she did a great job screaming, like at being the annoying.
No, she absolutely
Well,
did.
I thought
she did it so well that I didn't want to be around it anymore.
Yeah,
She was better than Mark Hamill.
Yeah, and I thought,
Oh my god.
so I thought she was pretty cool, and yeah, so actually I'm gonna say I really like this movie. I remember more scenes out of this movie and more little bits out of this movie than I do, especially out of Raiders. Raiders is the one that every time I watch it, I'm just like, I don't think it's a bad movie, but I'm like, I don't even remember that because it didn't stick with me. Where like so much of this movie has stuck
Last
with
Crusade's
me.
the one that sticks with me more. I think.
Last Crusade has some good parts that, like, it is definitely the best movie in my opinion of the trilogy, and this is actually, I would say this is the worst, but I still think this is good.
For me,
I still think this is cool.
the best scene of all is the tank fight in Last Crusade. think it's one of the best.
It's a good
No,
action
it just
scene.
occurred to me since we were talking about Indiana Jones, instead of just saying that he was wrong over and over, I should have said he chose poorly.
He chose poorly. No,
Poorly.
Not wisely.
wisely.
Well, you want to wrap us up?
Yeah. So, give us your thoughts. There were some interesting takes in here. Who goes after Empire Strikes Back? I don't know. The Deuce.
There's some weird
The
takes in
Deuce.
here
The
too.
Deuce is who goes after it.
The Deuce took a deuce all over your childhood.
These
So
were-
go ahead and point out. Yeah.
These were huge movies. Actually, what we picked were like nothing is niche. Like they're super popular. Everyone knows them. Some of these we didn't even need to go and rewatch because we knew them a lot. But
The only movie I had to rewatch was RoboCop 2.
yeah,
The
I
rest
had to
of them I
catch up on
haven't
too.
seen in years, and
You know what I will say
Easy.
before
Yes, go on.
we end?
Mm.
Why didn't Batman Returns come up? Why did no one bring that up?
Because it seems too obvious,
Too
and we've already talked about it in a Christmas special.
Come on!
Why would I talk about the same
You
movie
had another
again?
chance. You had another chance.
We
to
would have had an argument this time.
Yeah.
We
But
called it
we
a
already
Hanukkah
voted.
movie.
We already voted. Batman Returns was cool. You guys just didn't like the fact that I brought it as a Christmas movie.
I guess you're right.
Yeah. Well,
Guess we couldn't have a sequel to that choice.
Well, I mean, but the
Come on.
Batman Forever is not very
that
good.
segment would have been us fighting again about whether
Although,
it's a Christmas movie
think
or
about
not.
it, Batman Forever, I think, would actually become a very good argument as to whether
Yes.
that's nostalgia or cool.
That is a good
Because
one,
it's
yeah.
definitely not the worst Batman movie. It's definitely not the best. There are elements that are good. There are elements that are bad. It's like, I could see that being an interesting debate of like, well, is it cool or is it?
Is it the one with Mr. Freeze and
No, that's
all
Batman
that?
and Robin.
That's Batman.
It's
and
with the
Robin.
Riddler and Two-Face.
Oh, Riddler and
Mhm.
Two-Face.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey and
Yeah, that
but-
definitely has some upsides and downsides to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
We should bring it up next time.
We should.
Not next episode.
Well, let us know what you think in our comments. Please tell the Deuce that he's wrong. About
All the
everything.
time.
it doesn't
All
even
the
matter
time.
what it is, what it's about.
Whatever.
Whatever. It's okay. Every episode we pick either Jeffrey or the Deuce because they just hate each other. Is what's clear. But
They are sitting opposite.
thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like, share it if you like these episodes. And it's me, Andy, signing off.
This is Michael.
The Deuce.
Jeffrey. See y'all later.
See ya.
Peace. Kalima.
Kadima.